Hello, I'm Helen Bradley. Welcome to this video tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can create chevron patterns in Illustrator. In this video tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can create chevron patterns like this in Illustrator. We're going to create firstly the very simple chevron and then one that's multicolored. To get started, I'm just going to create a new document. So I'll choose File and then New. I'm going to do this with some simple tools that will make it easy for you to create the chevron effect and do it effectively. I'm going to start with the rectangle tool and I'm going to click in the middle of the document because I want a rectangle that is a fixed size. I want it to actually be square and it's going to be 120 by 120 points, and I'll click OK. I'm going to target the selection tool here, make sure that I have my rectangle or my square selected. I'm going to hold Shift as I rotate it because that limits the rotation to multiples of 90 or 45 degrees, and I want this to be rotated 45 degrees. Let's zoom in on this shape for now, and we're going to get the scissors tool here. And the scissors tool allows us to break this shape into two pieces, and what we want is the top portion of the shape. So I'm going to click here over an anchor point and then click here over this anchor point. And now the shape is broken in two. I'm going back to the selection tool and I'm just going to select over the bottom half of the shape and pull it out of the way. And you can see here's the top half of the shape, here's the bottom half. We don't need the bottom half, so I'm going to press Delete to remove it. And let's focus on this top half. We're going to select it, and I don't want it to have any fill, so I'm going to turn the fill to none. And then we're going to concentrate on the stroke, because what we want to do is to take the stroke up to 20 points. And we're just going to check the stroke dialog to make sure that the stroke is aligned to the center of this line. That means that there's 10 points of stroke either side of the line. And we're going to use that later on to size this appropriately when we turn it into a pattern. Now let's go and pick a color for this. Well, actually I'm going to target a color here from a cooler color swatch that I have. And let's just make this one, the oranges here. So I'm going to start with the pale orange for this piece. Now what I need to do is to turn this into a shape, because at the moment it still is a square. It's just got two sides that have a color on it, but you can see that we're still working with the underlying square. So I'm going to choose Object and then Expand. And from this, all I want is the stroke, not the fill. So I'm just going to say expand the stroke and click OK. And now we have a shape that is the beginning of our chevron. To make it into a pattern in Illustrator CS6 and later, we're going to choose Object and then Pattern, Make, and click OK. And here's the start of our pattern. Now I want to zoom in pretty closely in here because lining this piece up is the tricky bit. And to do that, we're going to make sure that the width and height proportions are disabled, and we want to start working on the width because we want to close up this distance. So I'm going to press the down arrow key as I walk these two shapes on top of each other. Now it's a little difficult to see this one because it's got a line over it, so I'm going to disable the show tile edge so I can actually see it. And what I found with this particular shape, if you keep these proportions of 120 by 120 on your square and then make your stroke 20 points, what you need to put in here for the width is 155.55. And that gives you a nice angle here. These two pieces are nicely joined. And the height is just going to be 50 points. So I'm going to set that to 50 points and let's zoom out. So you could actually have gone in and actually typed these values in, but I wanted you to see how I found these values just by experimenting. 155 was too small, 156 was too much, somewhere between there was the sweet point, and in actual fact it turned out to be 155.55. Now we've got our pattern, so this is the pattern that we want. I'm just going to click here, Done. And Illustrator has gone and added the pattern to my pattern swatch. I'm going to press Ctrl-0 to just zoom out so we can see our shape. So I'm just going to pull this out of the way for now because we don't actually need it. But let's go and create a rectangle the size of this artboard and see how we would use our chevron. I have a script for this, but you could actually go and draw a rectangle should you so desire, but I'm using a script. I'm going to click on this rectangle that is the size of the artboard. Make sure that I have the fill selected here, and I'm going to my swatch, and there's the new pattern that we just created, and here is our chevron. Now if the chevron is too small or too big, we can change it. I'm going to choose Object, Transform, Scale. Now I don't want to scale the shape, so I don't want to scale the object, I want to scale the pattern. Going to turn preview on. So if I type 50%, for example, we're going to scale the chevron to be a lot smaller. If we want it to be bigger, we could make it 200%, and then that would be a much bigger chevron. We can do whatever it is that we want in terms of scaling using this scale option. So there's one of the chevrons that we're going to create. For now, I'm just going to turn the visibility off of that shape, and let's just lock that layer so that it won't move. I just want to focus on this piece here. So let's get it and let's take it back into the work area. This time we want a 2-color chevron. So I'm going to make the second chevron using Effect, Distort and Transform, and then Transform. I'm going to turn the preview on, and I want one copy so that I end up with 2 pieces of this shape, and I just want to move it vertically 50 points. 50 points giving me a space of 20 points between these two 20-point wide chevron pieces. It's just some nice mathematics here. I'll click OK. Now these two shapes are in actual fact still just one shape, and we need to expand it, so I'm going to choose Object, Expand Appearance, and now we have the two shapes and they can be separately colored. I'm just going to double click on one of them to take it into isolation mode here, and let's change its color. And we'll just press Escape to go back out of isolation mode. So now we have the pieces all ready to make our pattern from. I'm going to select both pieces and go back and choose Object, Pattern, Make. And we're going to do the same as we did before. We're going to type 155.55 to bring these two together. And this time the height needs to be a little bit different. 50 points won't work. It has to be 100 because we need to see all the pieces. If we used 50, we'd be just seeing one color chevron because one would be placed over the other. But now we've got our nice 2-color chevron pattern. We'll click Done, and it's now been added automatically to the swatches palette, so I can get rid of these pieces. Let's go back and add another rectangle the size of the artboard. Again, I'm using a script here, but you could use just drawing a rectangle. I'm going to select this path and I'm going to click to fill it with my pattern. And this pattern is going to be able to be scaled exactly the same way as the other one was, using Object, Transform, Scale. Again, I don't want to transform the object, so I'm going to deselect this, but I do want to transform the chevron pattern. And we'll just make it 75% this time and click OK. So there's how you can create chevron patterns inside Illustrator. I'm Helen Bradley. Thank you for joining me for this video tutorial. Look out for more video tutorials here on my YouTube channel, and consider subscribing to my channel and you'll be alerted when new videos are released. And visit my website at projectwoman.com, where you'll find more tips, tricks and tutorials on a range of applications including Illustrator, Lightroom, Photoshop and a whole lot more.